Hello, Mark Sabatella from Mastering MuseScore here. In this video, I'm going to show you a fairly simple way to have combined instruments in a single staff. For instance, Flute 1 and Flute 2 combined onto a single staff in your score while still having separate parts. Now, there are ways of doing this. There's relatively complex ways involving using multiple voices in particular ways. I'm going to show you a somewhat simpler method here. So I have my separate Flute 1 and Flute 2 instruments here, and we can see them both, Flute 1 and Flute 2, in the Instruments panel. What I'm going to do next is add a third instrument that's going to be the combined instrument. So I'll click the Add button, and then double-click Flute to give me another flute, and then OK. And I now have my third part here, and it's called Flute 3. Well, I don't want it to be called Flute 3, so I'm going to click the gear icon next to Flute 3 here in the Instruments panel and just change it to say Flutes 1 and 2. And I'll also change the abbreviated name to say Flutes 1 and 2. The abbreviated name is what will show up on subsequent systems after the first. So I now have an empty space for the combined part. Now let's look at how to actually combine them. I'm going to use the implode feature. So I'll click the first measure of the Flute 1 part, shift click the first measure of the Flute 2 part, and then use Shift Control End to select to the end of the score. And if you don't have a physical end key, it's usually FN plus right. So now that I've selected the entire score across those two flute parts, I can go to Tools, Implode to combine them. And you'll see that now they are combined right here on that top staff. Now, I don't want them combined there, but that's okay. I'm going to use Control-C right now to copy that so I can paste it in a minute onto the bottom staff. But before I paste it, I want to undo that change so I still have my original Flute 1 part the way it was. So I did the implode, then the copy, and then the undo. Now I can come to the Flutes 1 and 2 and do Control-V to paste. Now that I've pasted it, if we take a look at this, we can see that MuseScore is using multiple voices to combine these, and that is what you normally want. But in places where they have the same rhythm, like in this little passage here, where they have the same rhythm, they both have quarter notes, we actually want those combined into a single voice. And same here at the end where they both have half notes. So what I'm going to do now is select that combined part, select that first measure, and then Shift Control End to select to the end. And I'm going to implode again. And now those places where the rhythms were the same, they were both quarter notes or both half notes, they've been combined into a single voice. So now that I have this staff looking the way I want, what I need to do is hide the other two staves because I don't need to see those in my score. So I'm going to go ahead and click the eye icon here in the Instruments panel to hide Flute 1 and Flute 2 in the score. But now I can go to the Parts window and say Open All, and what we're going to see is that the Flute 1 part still exists. Even though we hit it in the score, we can still access its part. We can still access the Flute 2 part. So this is a way we can look at in the score and have the two flutes combined onto a single staff, but then we can still have individual Flute 1 and Flute 2 parts. Now, of course, if you then want to make a change, you'll probably want to make it the change to both places. So if I want to change, for instance, this B here to another G, I can certainly do that, but then I'll probably want to go to the Flute 2 part and make that same change. So this is a relatively straightforward way of having separate parts in that you can print while having them combined onto a single staff in the score.